Well, hello, everyone. It's Dr. Sally Good. I'm so glad to have you here today. Good Body, Good Brain podcast. Today, my guest is Joeaux Robey, and she is the CEO and founder of Soulopreneur Productions. She has a wonderful program called the $1 Million Lightworker. We're going to talk a lot about what it's like to be a woman today of a certain age. And I cannot wait to have you meet her. She's just a joy to be with. And here she is, Miss Joy. So nice for you to be here today.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Sally. It is such a pleasure to be here. And I've actually really looked forward to meeting you and having a conversation. I know that we are in some of the same, mentor groups, and you're just, how like you're in mentor groups as well. And you know how there's certain people in those groups that you're just like, I want to meet that person. And so that's you for me. I wanted to meet you. I wanted to find out what good body, good brain was all about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's a mutual thing. We are attracted to each other by many, many, many aspects. Sometimes it's just energetic. Sometimes it's faith. Sometimes it's how we present in the world and how we show up. And so you're the one of the lovely people who shows up, and she is not afraid to talk about her faith. She's not afraid to talk about the fact that light workers are important in the world, and we want to support them as much as we possibly can. So welcome to Good Body, Good Brain.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just want to put an emphasis on that about light workers. I know that's a term that, not everybody may know what that means. And for me, it's those people out there that I like to say want to spread the light. Like they have special skills, special talents, special messages. I mean, there's a lot of them that are just spiritual influencers that, light up a room. They're those people that walk in and light up a room. They make such a difference in people's lives. And in the last 15 years, I've been really working with a lot of spiritual influencers. I've been the marketer behind the scenes, helping them get their messages out. And what I've noticed is that they're so good at what they do, but sometimes they don't see what value they truly have in the world, how they really what they want to do and how they want to expand, love and compassion on the planet is, so valuable. And yet it's also very grounded, right? It's still a business. It's still something that
yes.
You need to know the basics of a business.
Yes. And here's the sort of like the intersection of that. My branding of in the big world, the big world that's coming is called the Big Idea Sherpa. And so I work with women who have divinely inspired ideas. And when I mean divinely inspired, it's like either a lightning bolt or it's been keeping them up at night at 3:00 in the morning. Like, this is really big. It's so big. I'm not sure I am capable of delivering it. How would I find somebody to help me get out there? And a lot of coaches, I started out in the sales and marketing business after the medical technology stint, then sales and marketing. And I came into psychology as secondary because of all the positive psychology that was going on. So really my first love is sales and marketing. And when I talk to a lot of coaches, they love what they do. They have no idea how to make a business out of it. They don't know the rudiments of anything. When I say, what's your ROI? They go, huh? What? They don't know metrics, and they don't know how to measure if what they're doing is really working. So I am like that foundation underpinning of trying to get the big idea out into the big world so that it can influence a certain type of culture, whether it's institutional culture, schools, colleges, even certain churches, et cetera, et cetera. So that getting that big idea out requires like a little bit of shift up here. And you know what that shift is of somebody being able to say, hey, I can do this. I've got people behind me, but it takes a little bit of.
Yeah, so one of the things that I noticed early on was that a lot of women, and my market is very similar to yours, Dr. Sally. A lot of women, a lot of light workers had a hard time charging their value. There was something about, if it was spiritual, you couldn't make a living at it. You couldn't make too much money, and yet if you look at all of the people out there that are very, very successful, that are spiritual, because there are a lot of spiritual businesses out there.
Yes.
They make money. I mean, it takes money to make money. And if you want to have a massive impact, which are the people that, I enjoy working with, that have that that burning desire to play big, you have to be able to have that mindset of making enough money to be able to travel the world, to be able to have, hotel ballrooms and have huge events, because those things cost a lot more money than people realize. Until you get to that point, you don't really actually know why you have to charge a certain amount. And so I always love that conversation too, around, making money is like, it can block your mission if you don't have the right mindset about it. It's not necessarily mean that you're putting, like in my case, my program is called $1 Million Lightworker for a reason. Like I want to have the conversation around $1 million right up front.
Yes.
Because I feel like, if you want to have a massive impact, you really need to be looking to hit that 7 and 8 figure mark, because it requires a team. It requires, lots of technology. It requires customer support. There's so much that goes behind it once you start to build your business, that, you have to shift your mindset a little bit. And I actually went through a lot of that myself. That's why I love talking about it, is because I had a business partner. This was 15 years ago when I first got on my spiritual path. I had a business partner, and she woke me up. She really did. I was in a really tough place in my life, and she woke me up. And I remember, she and I started working together. I loved her message, what she was doing. So I started helping her. And we would say back then, we will go anywhere, we'll do anything as long as our bills get paid. Now, what is wrong with that message? As long as our bills get paid? I mean, so then we would finish an event, we would get our bills paid, but we wouldn't have
didn't
enough.
Pay yourself.
Right. We wouldn't have enough money to take a couple of days off. We were running to the next event to make more money, And yeah, so I think that I love this conversation, and what we talked about earlier too, is my favorite people. I like working with everybody, but I really enjoy working with people like me. Like I like to say sages, women who are 40 plus, and even the older, even more important, because I believe that we have so many experiences, and not all of them are, I like to say there's no such thing as failure. There's just good feedback. And, it's those feedback experiences that we share that give other women like us permission to kind of tell their story. And when we start to realize that, we tend to look at somebody who might be in our position now, Dr. Sally, who, have our own programs and everything, but we went through a few things, I like to say we get a few speed bumps, right?
Yes. You don't get somewhere without making different decisions that have influenced you in different kinds of ways. You cannot reach the top without, first of all, stubbing your toe quite a few times to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about those toe stubbings, even I've found like even the most painful ones, the times I've shared those stories, I've had women come up afterwards going, I have never told anyone this, but because you just said that on stage, I want to share this with you. And just, I mean, you work in the brain, just sharing it
Right.
is a release of energy, it's awesome.
Well, the other thing, when we get back to the money conversation, I say, well, we have to do good so we can do good. And if you don't have extra money to put into something that's, like, I call it my fourth tier, which is my philanthropic self. If I'm not able to give away money and not worry about the bottom line, not worrying about whether I'm going to pay my bills, all those kinds of things, then I'm not making enough money, because I want that largesse to be able to give it away, and also give it away and not let anybody know that I gave it to them.
That is the best feeling in the whole world. That it's, or we were talking about earlier about, for everybody who's listening, you go through seasons in your life, where, maybe you are in college, you get married, you start your family or your career or both. And then you hit this, as we talked about earlier, the 40s, right? It is so fun. Your body can pretty much handle anything. You think you're invincible. You're never going to get older, right?
And then for a little bit,
gravity hits, all of a sudden, like, these things happen that you think aren't going to happen. And you go through these phases. And for me, and I don't know, maybe other people, I have friends that would shake their head the same, because we're all about in the same age group. But for me, I think the 40s was fun, and the 50s was a little tough, because you start feeling age hit you, right? Like, your body doesn't quite recover as quickly. And, you start seeing a few gray hairs, and you start getting, like, signs of aging, right? And, but when we were talking about this earlier, when I hit my 60s, I don't know what happened. Like, I can't point to any one thing, but I just didn't care anymore. And I found that in not caring, it's funny, because my daughter, she's a millennial. She just had my first grandbaby.
Yes, hooray! 4 months or 3 months?
4 months, yeah. And she said to me one day, she goes, Mom, your generation, she always refers to it as my generation. Mom, your generation talks to everybody. Have you heard this, Sally?
No. But
okay, so she said to me, Mom, your generation talks to everybody. And I said, really? You think so? And she goes, yeah. And I go, well, you're friendly with people. She goes, no, I'm not. and I said, yes, you are. And she said, no, not unless I have to be. And she said, my generation, and she's in her, mid 30s. She said, my generation, we grew up with screens. And so we don't really instigate we don't start conversation. And it was funny, because we were standing in line at Trader Joe's when she tells me this, right? So then I get up to pay, and I say,
what a great place to talk to people. Oh,
yeah. So I get up to pay the check, the clerk, and I say, how's your day going? And she goes, see, and I thought, so what shifted, like what, because I'm fascinated by generations, I'm fascinated by the shifts we go through. And I think the thing that shifts is that, when you get to be a little bit older, you just don't care anymore. You're more leaning into the compassion. Now, Sally, you said something to me when we were talking earlier, that you said, well, not all women, there's a lot of light workers out there that have great things, but they don't all feel that way. Right.
And when you say don't feel that way, you mean about their work or about being able to just don't care?
Right. That they do care, that there are still, or maybe some women that you're working with, or you work with women in that category, that they still have those struggles.
Well, they're sort of thin-skinned. They're people pleasers, and they are not used to being criticized. And when someone criticizes them, they take it really personally, when in reality it could be just feedback, or it could be, we have people that are just intentionally mean, especially online, because you can hide behind the digital world. So people and if you're doing spear point stuff, as I call it, if we were leading the charge into a new territory, which a lot of us are doing, and I know you're doing it, and I don't think I'll ever stop doing it. We're leading the charge, and people are going to do slings and arrows. They're going to say, "Oh, you're too old. Why are you doing this? Yeah, haven't you retired yet?" I said, "Retired? Are you kidding me? I've got a stack of things I've got to get going and got to get doing, and I can see so much impact that can be made. Why would I want to stop?"
Yeah, I like to call it repassioning. Like we may move
I love that.
We may move through careers, like I was a corporate marketing executive for decades. And I still use that skill set in what I'm doing now. But before, I worked with, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. And I wasn't passionate about their message. It was a job. It was work. Like I had the skill set. I knew how to get them from point A to point B, but I repassioned it into working with women who I really feel like could make a difference, who were, healers, channelers, social influencers, authors, speakers, facilitators, that were really passionate about their own message, but they had no idea on how to get out in the marketplace, or even how to price them, or maybe they had a business that was like tiptoeing right around $100,000 a year, and they just couldn't get over that mark, And so for me, it was more about taking the skills that I loved, but applying them more towards my personal values, and working with people that I really felt like could make a difference. And I thought, like, if you would ask me a year ago, I'd say, oh, I'm never going to stop doing what I'm doing. Like right now, my mission is to create $100 million light workers. Like that's my mission. And people in my program will say, well, what are you going to do after that? And I think, well, I already am doing other things. I already have, I created a food truck, and that food truck is just for philanthropy. We just take it out and do pay it forward and use the money for different community groups that are looking to raise
outreach funds. Yes.
I can't imagine. I think that this is another change, as we watch generations march through life, and we all get to see probably maybe three or four generations in our lifetime. And as we watch the generations, I think that what we're seeing with our age is that we don't want to retire at 60. We don't we still feel young, we still feel like full life.
And we're having fun.
Yeah, we love technology, like learning technology. I know you learn a lot about AI, it keeps you alive, it's really fun. Yeah.
I tell people that some women buy shoes, I buy software.
I love that. I buy shoes too, I have to say.
I buy really, really comfortable stable shoes. And as we talked earlier, we talked a little bit about self-care. And when I talk about, I have like a private clinical practice that is like, when I talk about clinical, I'm talking about very extreme sort of cases, mostly in the gerontology area. And I'm talking to women who are in their 80s and 90s. So I get to bridge that ongoing thing of what they're thinking. Some of them are actually quite good shape, like cognitively or mentally, or they've fallen and broken their hip. They need rehab, and they're going to eventually go back home, or they're going to go to assisted living or something like that. So I get to go into that generational kind of thing with them and see what they're thinking. And it's amazing, because a lot of them are going like, oh, I haven't read James Joyce in a while, or I haven't read this, or I haven't read that. And we have conversations. And when I say Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart, they go, oh, yeah, remember so-and-so and so-and-so. If I say those, I said something the other day about Lauren Bacall in a therapy session with somebody who was about 40, and they had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So there's a history that moves forward with us, and we continue to share that. And I'll say, look, if you ever want to know about what a bad breakup looks like, go watch the original Roses with Michael Douglas.
Oh, the War of the Roses.
The War of the Roses. If you want to
Yeah.
see what a bad breakup looks like, that's what it looks like. They've redone it this year. It hasn't been released. Yeah, it's coming, but it won't be near as vicious, especially when he ran over the dog. I don't think he did it on purpose, but he did.
Well, and it's interesting too when you mentioned film, because so I'm newly married. This is my second marriage.
Congratulations! And when you say newly, how newly?
Just a little over a year. I met.
Wonderful.
I like to say, and I hope I don't offend anybody on this, but I like to say I had a really good COVID, because COVID expanded my business by like 4x, because I already knew how to do online webinars and had a studio and everything. And so a lot of my clients were, they had live events, and because they had live events, they were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So we just took them all online. And so it really expanded my business very quickly. And during that process, because I'm a marketer producer, I'm doing like all of the getting people to the webinar. I met the director, who's the guy behind the camera putting it all together, and we fell in love, and we got married. Yeah. And because he's such a film buff, he's also a screenwriter. We often we watch new films, but we'll also go back and watch older ones that, the younger people probably wouldn't even think about. But here's the thing that I realized, Sally, is that if you ever want to see how things were in the 60s or the 50s, go watch one of those films. Yeah, because if you don't think that women have changed, if you think that, again, this is another conversation I had with my daughter, if you think that things are getting worse and you think that, things have not changed, go watch those movies and just look at how they're dressed to do housekeeping. Look at how men speak to them. Look at the jobs they keep. That is such a good barometer of where society is at that time when you watch films like that, and then fast forward to more like the 90s, where, women are on Wall Street, and later where the ceiling is, there still is a ceiling, but not like there was, not like there was.
And then we have the women that are the hired killers, like Atomic Blonde.
Yeah. Yeah.
Charisse Theron. She's a
Yeah.
dynamo,
Yeah.
from beauty to physicality, the Mad Max, the new Mad Max. Like there's people, and like Scarlett Johansson, another one, in the
Yeah.
latest Jurassic Park movie. She's 40 years old. She's got a couple of kids, and I'm sure she's doing a lot of her own stuff, because I don't know if sometimes you can fake things, but I'm sure she had a stunt woman, but she's still game. She's still out
Yeah.
there doing it.
Yeah. 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 I
Well,
mean,
I like to look at, yes, and I like to look at the film noir. I love the older films where
oh,
the women are, and the secretaries, and they're doing the typewriter thing, and they're like a whole pool of them,
yeah.
because you have to have a lot of them, because it takes so long to do one document, because they're doing everything by dictation, etc. And then the I Love Lucy era, which was like
Yeah.
cuckoo crazy,
Yeah.
and there was just so many ones. And you look at, and film becomes our historical records of what was really going on during that time period.
Absolutely.
Like Marla Thomas, like she was like the, a total another era of kind of person.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
Yeah. Very inspiring women. And, I think, I just want to take this back to the money again.
Yes.
I want to go back to the money again. So what I learned is that, if you want money to come into your life, and you have a business, or you have a dream, or you want to play bigger, and you've got something blocking you, like money, start with gratitude. Like just start with it. You don't have to have anything. Like just be grateful you woke up and had a good hair day.
Right, and you can breathe. You can walk.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just be grateful, because in fact, I have a sign on my fireplace. It says, "Gratitude is the abracadabra of the universe," and I really believe
it totally
that.
is.
I believe, once you have a grateful heart, I don't know, things just kind of magically start rushing in, and then you're not even really thinking about the money. You're not worried about that kind of stuff, because the right things, you start co-creating so many amazing things just straight out of gratitude. And I think that that these are the kind of conversations, when we talk about sages, Sally, that we could tell you stories, like we can go back in our life, because we have lived those decades, and we have gone through those experiences. I read a book called The Book of Joy, and it was a conversation between the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And, these are two men who basically are without a country, right? They were basically, they lost their country, and yet they are still men of compassion, men in their hearts. Right? And somebody, Desmond Tutu asked the Dalai Lama, he said, so, I think it was their 80th birthday or their 90th birthday that they did this interview. And he said, if you could interview anybody, who would it be? And he said, I want to have tea with the Queen of England, with Queen Elizabeth. And he said, so, but what would you ask him? And then they fast forwarded it, and he told the story that he actually did have tea with her. And he said to her, so do you think that things are getting better or worse? And she leaned into him and she said, oh, things are getting so much better. I mean, we have divorce in our family. Like, look at all of the rights that have come forward that like we take for granted, that things change slowly. They change faster now, believe it, than ever before, but change does happen slowly. And, we really get the opportunity to be grateful for all of the amazing things happening on the planet. I know people like to point to all of the horrible things, but if you stop and sink into your heart and are grateful just for the fact that you have a roof over your head, just for the fact that, like you said, you can breathe, it's amazing how great life is. Because most of the things that are happening in the news are not happening to most of the world in that minute.
Yes.
It's drama stories being told over and over and over and over again. And so I just think that if we all as a human race, if there was one thing that we could start doing on a daily basis, it's just every morning wake up and be grateful for 3 things. And when you get ready to go to bed at night, be grateful for three things that happen during the day. And I think the whole world would start to shift, Sally. I think it's that simple.
Yes. And that's the homework I give to virtually every client I have, especially when they're doing the whiny thing, like, wait, I don't have this, don't have that. I said, you don't have things because you don't have things, right? So when you start to think about, yes, you do have things, and this is, look, you've got a beautiful daughter, you have this, we're talking, you're talking, and you're paying me to talk to me. Now how cool is that for you and for me, right?
Yeah.
So we just really get back to what it is that they're missing. They're missing the essence of what it is to be human. And it's so easy to be human. Like you said, talk to people. I like to talk to people who aren't expecting me to talk to them. I like to pick people who would think like, oh, that old white woman, oh, she'd never even give me the time of day. But, I always like to prove them wrong because I'm very curious. I'm very curious about people and what they believe and what they think about. And I've opened the door to some conversations that if I had recorded them and transcribed them, I could have had a novella because it would have been amazing things that people, and it's just, you have to allow yourself to be that human being and just put down all that other stuff. I call it stuff that gets in the way. And then when you can do that, it gives the other person like an idea, like it's safe. It's safe.
Yeah.
I can.
And it's so easy because basically everybody loves to talk about themselves.
Yes.
And all you have to do is ask them about them, and then listen, like what you and I are doing right here, right now, it's just, we didn't rehearse anything. We didn't really talk about, we just connected on a level that we had some things in common. And, we realized, well, this is a fun conversation. I have had in the last year, twice now, Uber drivers asked me at the end of our drive if one of them said to me, we're not supposed to do this. He got out to get my luggage out of the back of the car. Yes. He goes, we're not supposed to do this. So I won't tell you his name, but he said, okay, can I give you a hug? Can I give you a hug? I mean, how many times have you had an Uber driver jump out of the car? I've had it happen twice now. And why? Because they picked me up at 4:00 in the morning. They're taking me to the airport. It's early. And I said, so how are you? Do you like driving an Uber? And then it opened up this whole conversation about, and I love to talk to people about dreams, like what would you do if you could do anything in the world? But yes. It's just so easy to do. I hope that this conversation, inspires others to do that, like to take a risk, and to, it actually is really fun. It's fun to connect with people on that level.
I was in San Antonio going to a seminar, and I chose to get an Uber driver to take me because I didn't want to navigate all the traffic. And he was a Sikh. And I was fascinated. He had this turban on, and underneath it was probably like a lot of hair. And we were driving, And I started asking him, I said, I can see you're a man of great faith because of the way that your hair, your turban is situated and the way you do that. Can you tell me, I'm really curious. Can you tell me about some like, what's sort of like the basic tenets of the things that you really value?
Uh-huh.
And he started talking about how life was so important to the Sikhs. They valued all life. They valued all people, all life, and there was not much discrimination among even like people who probably didn't like them very much and didn't see them as being a spiritual being. And I just said, well, like, this is fascinating. I really have so enjoyed learning all about this. And he said, well, the next time you need to go somewhere, I'll give you my card and I'd appreciate it if you call me. And I said, yes. I said, I would love to. And I'd like to continue this conversation. He was just a sweet guy. I have no idea where he was from originally. He was very dark skinned. He was somewhere from the Middle East. But he was you could tell he was very well put together by the attention he had taken to his accoutrement that he put together in the morning. It must have taken a while to get ready. So I love meeting people like that. I want to know about their world and their life and what it's like to be the person that they are.
Yeah, I would love if we start a movement that is, we seek out what we have in common instead of, differences. I was talking to another one of my peers, one of my best girlfriends, and we were talking about how sad it is that you can't have conversations around certain things. You can't talk about it. People get so upset, and in some cases there are people who will never talk to you again, if you have a difference of opinion. And she said to me, Joy, it's like if I said to you, well, I don't like asparagus, you wouldn't say to me, we just can't be friends. That's
we can't be friends anymore. Right.
Never talking to you again. And I think that, wouldn't it be so cool if, when I said, when Sally, you say to me, Joy, I don't like asparagus. And I say, why not? Like, what is it about asparagus you don't like? Rather than like to create that bigger divide, but like try to get an understanding, because I really believe that if we could do that, what we're going to find out is that everybody wants the same thing. We want to be happy. We want our children to have opportunity and to be happy. And if we could like really focus on those similarities rather than just not talking to you, we could actually find amazing solutions. No different than like if you're in a boardroom, you've got a business and you're trying to solve a problem, you put the whiteboard up, nobody can say no. You have to say, and we could do this, like teach each other brainstorming, because it's kind of heartbreaking that we've lost that ability to try to understand one another as opposed to just cutting each other off,
Yes. And I wish that we could, in a way, like going back in time, because I remember when I used to live in San Francisco, and there was a coffee shop, and the guy who owned it, his name was Ferlinghetti, and he was a poet, and he wrote something. I think it was something of the mind. I'll think of it later, but the coffee shop, that was before we had the internet. Yay. We all brought a book to sit and read, and I would have coffee and just read. And there would be somebody who would sit down beside me. They would never say like, oh, I'm so-and-so, who are you, etc. Never, ever. We'd do those conversations like, what do you do? Where do you work? It was all about what we were thinking, Oh, I see you're reading whatever, and do you mind if I ask you a question? And we'd start a conversation, and then somebody else would join us, and then it would end and sort of like organically, and then we would say goodbye, and we never exchange. We didn't even know who each other was. We didn't really care, but it was about the exchange of ideas. And I would leave, and then maybe a couple of days later, I would, come by for another coffee. It was near the Buena Vista Cafe, which had like a lot of that sort of traffic as well. And just to go in there and just sit and just exchange ideas, just as one person to another. I could have been talking to a CEO, or I could have been talking to somebody who's homeless. I didn't know. It didn't matter to me what their station in life was or anything about their background. It only mattered what the idea they had in their head at the moment. So I would love that we could get back to that.
I love that you said that, because I hadn't really thought about how, I don't know at what point in our lives we got to where we open up questions with, hi, where do you live? What do you do? Versus what are you reading? Or what do you think about this cafe? Or I think I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to articulate it, because I know here in the US, in the school system, we've taken so many things out of the public schools that, most of us grew up with,
right. Like civics, economics,
economics,
homemaking. Everybody needs to know how to do things around the house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I'm not one to live in regret of how things were. I always look at how do we improve it going forward?
Yes.
How do we change that in a way that young people do get to experience those things in the way that's meaningful to them now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I want to know what the answers are. That would be a fun conversation to do boardroom style with a whiteboard where everybody puts their ideas on the table. There are no bad ideas. You can't say no. You have to say, and
it could be something else, right?
Right. Yeah.
And also too, my generation really was the go to college generation. I think we don't really need everybody going to college. I think we need people to pursue where their passion is. And if it's if you want to be the best welder in the world, do it, because I have known plenty of welders that make over $150,000. They're on the road, they're out in the ranch, they're working for really big ranchers who have a lot of money, but they love what they do. Be a plumber, whatever it is that you enjoy doing and you find pull toward, going to college was fun in the era that I was in. It was just, I went to an all girls school. That was so much fun. It was the first time I've ever had the opportunity to be in the same domicile or dormitory with Black women. Mm-hmm. I grew up with Black women. Our maid was a Black woman. We would take her home. When she got sick, we'd go take care of her at her house. Mm-hmm. We had this really wonderful sort of exchange. But to actually grow up with Black women and find out what was important to them, it was fascinating to me. And back to your asparagus story, I used to tell I used to work with kids who we call them antisocial youths, because we didn't want to call them juvenile delinquents or whatever, but they were raised to be pretty much antisocial. It was a lot of familial backgrounds and stuff. And I would say, somebody comes up to you and says, I don't like your green hair. You go, oh, this guy's nuts. Obviously I don't have green hair. Are you going to get upset because someone says you have green hair? And they're going to, oh, that's stupid. I wouldn't, I just think the guy was crazy. I said, well, why do you get upset when the guy tells you that you're too short or you're too this or too that? It's the same as saying you have green hair. It's not true. So why does it bother you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have gotten really thin-skinned, as you said, you know, and for me, I loved it when Mel Robbins came out with her book, Let 'Em, you know, just let them, you know, it's like, don't take it personally. If somebody doesn't want to invite you to brunch, so what? Invite somebody else to brunch, you know, like, don't take things so personally. One of my favorite books, in fact, it is the company values of my company, Soulopreneur Productions. You probably can't see it, it hangs on my wall, are the 4 agreements. I really believe that,
yes,
you know, everyone, if we all just lived by the 4 agreements, when we did have some kind of division, we would just point to which of the 4 agreements are we out of alignment with right now, you know? Because what I've found, like even in my business with my team, that when something, you know, when there's a struggle happening or somebody's upset, all we do is we go inside first. We look at ourselves first and we say, am I taking this personally? You know, did I make an assumption? You know, was I impeccable with my word? Like, was this about me? You know, did I do my best? You know, and if you come up first with, you know, well, maybe I did take it a little personally, or maybe I did read into that comment, you know, when you bring it down to that simple of a level, it really helps to keep our compassion and love in check and bring us all back to the point that we really all want the same thing. You know, we all want to be loved. That's how simple it is. We all want to be loved.
And to extend grace to yourself first and to everybody around you, because we're sort of all doing the same thing. We're trying to do the best that we can. And sometimes things get in the way. Sometimes people show up for work and, you know, a really bad thing has happened in their life. And we don't know that. We just know that they're kind of droopy and they're not their usual self. And we just assume something is going on with work, but no, it could be something totally, totally different. So extending grace and kindness to each other on so many levels, just if we could instill that, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to help a colleague do is create more kindness within the corporate environment, because stats really show us that when we incorporate that sort of like gratitude, people work better together. There's more team cohesion. There's more productivity. And the bottom line rises significantly, as well as customer support.
Yeah, I have a client in my $1 Million Lightworker program, and her mission is to heal the races.
Oh, yes.
Isn't that like
a great one?
And, you know, she says to me, Joy, it's not that difficult. Like when we understand that we have so much programming and so many things that we were brought up with, and, you know, so many things that we're hanging on to. And when we realize that, like, it's really not any of our fault, you know, we've been acclimatized. Did I get that right? We've been brought.
Yes. And acculturated.
Exactly. You know, and then the next step is really, well, like, what do we want? Do we really want to stay in this place of hate and of, you know, well, hate. I mean, I don't even know a stronger word, but do we really want to stay in this place, or do we want to find solutions? Because I'm a Pollyanna, obviously, right? My name is Joy. I'm a Pollyanna. I always see the glass as, you know, half full. And my son said to me one day,
probably 3/4 full.
Yeah. And my son said to me one day, he's a economist. And he said to me, Mom, you're an outlier. So, you know, right? Right. You know, so you've got your chart, you know, and you've got your graph going up like that. Right. And he's like, Mom, you're always over here. You're throwing all the data off, you know, but I think we have to, like, some of us, and that's my natural disposition. But I think, like, if we all could just become outliers in the sense that we don't have to look like and be like and follow everything else that everybody else is doing. And one other thing that you said too, Sally, about like work, about career, about, your business, about what you choose to do on a daily basis. I like to use the word PLURK, play plus work equals PLURK, because I learned, a while ago that if it wasn't fun, I didn't want to do it, because
Right.
if it's fun, you're never working, and one of the things that I think is really important about loving what you do is and finding what you love to do, discovering what you love to do, because that's another area that we were programmed. Like a lot of us were told, do this because you'll make good money. Maybe you wanted to be an artist, but you weren't able to because you were coached, towards being a doctor or something. I'm just using that as an example. But what I realized I think it was about 10 years ago, that I had been to every single place on my bucket list, Sally, and I did not take one penny out of my checking account to do it. And I realized, like, as I was putting together a presentation when I realized this, and it was because what was I doing? I was taking people, I was serving, like I was helping people realize their dreams. And because of that, I got to realize my dreams. Now, was that job on the career list? No, it wasn't on the career list. No, it just happened because I thought, I would love to travel. Who wants to travel? Okay, I'll organize it. I'll take you. And the next thing I knew, people were paying me to go all the places that I wanted to go. And that is a message that I'd really love to leave behind with your audience, is that you can do, I wear a bracelet right here and it says, everything is possible, because I really believe it. And I wear the bracelet because if I ever have a thought that says I can't, no, I don't snap it because I don't believe in pain. I just switch the wrist.
Switching over. Yes.
Yeah, because what that does is, it stops the synapses, right?
It's a disruptor.
Yeah. And as you, like, I've been wearing this for 15 years. My kids everybody who knows me wears one, because, and I don't switch it anymore. It's just a reminder that I always have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I can always choose how I'm going to feel about something. I can always choose how I'm going to respond to something, and the only person I can control is me, and so it kind of goes back to that thin skin thing, and about people, saying things that, at first might not feel great, but you just have to realize that those aren't about you.
No,
they're not about you, and it is a little shocking sometimes, but I just want everyone to realize that there's so much more good, and there's so many more people out there that want to spread love, that if we just all leaned into it, and if that was our choice on a daily basis, who cares if you don't like asparagus, or if you love asparagus, who cares?
Yes. And the people that are like that are what I call, it's called stirring the oatmeal people. You're in the kitchen and you're just silently just stirring the oatmeal, and you're thinking about your thoughts, and you're doing the best for your family, and they're the glue that's holding, society together. Because if you're stirring the oatmeal, you've got food. If you're there in the kitchen, you preparing for your family or yourself or whatever. But it's the quiet people who are doing these things, and I would like for them to be able to be a little bit more open about talking about it, because we hear so much noise, not signal, we hear noise. We hear so much noise from other folks who may not even believe in what they're actually saying, but they may be saying it because somebody paid them to say it. So we've got a lot of noise going on over here. I'd like to hear some signals coming out, like the Dr. Ben Hardy's.
Yeah.
The science of scaling. Yes, and people of faith who are not afraid to say, I pray before I sit down to write.
Yeah.
I want to make sure the message that I'm putting on that paper or that computer is what I should be aligned with. So
Yeah.
when we have more people like that in the world, people like you, people that you attract, people that you're serving, and that's the glorious thing about what we do. We get to choose who we attract and also who we ultimately work with. And I work with a branding person named Rich Kovac of Rich Brands, and we
Great.
have a group of people who are attracted to this particular whatever we're doing at the time because I heard about him because I was listening to Feel Better on a podcast, and Rich said, if you're not aligned with your passion, then it's never going to work. And I said, I have to talk to this guy. And so the next day I went on LinkedIn and sent him a message that said, I need to talk to you. And so we had a 30-minute conversation, and that ended up being another conversation. And then after that, Phil wanted me to be on his podcast. So I was just on Phil's podcast, but he takes about 90 days to get his productions going. So maybe end of maybe December, that'll be coming out, which will be kind of cool. So it was like a constant sort of rotation, but just being able to choose who you want to play with. And it's total play. There'll be like 10 of us on Zoom, and we'll be helping each other craft the message. And there'll be like wordsmiths on there who have an idea. There'll be other people who are writers who'll have another idea. And we craft the message. And the ultimate message is when we can start taking this word away and it still holds up. We take this word away and it still holds up. So we get down to what's the real essence of the message. And then we say, that's it. We've got it. And the same thing works in the real world too, not just with words.
And also with fear. So here's what I learned about fear. I was terrified of public speaking. In fact, I turned down some really big jobs when I was in my 40s because I would have had to have spoken to a group of 200 plus people every month. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. And it really held me back. But then when I started working with spiritual influencers and I'm in the background, like I'm really good one-on-one with them, you know, they'd say to me, Joy, we need to put you on stage. And of course I'd say, okay. And then I'd go to the bathroom, you know, and then I would disappear, you know, I would be in the bathroom throwing up because I was so afraid to get on stage. And I knew like the little voice in my head kept saying, you know, this is something that would be really good. You're being called to do this. And this voice over here is saying, I am not getting on that stage. I'm freaking out. Like I was terrified. And what happened to me was, these influencers I worked with, they would just hand me the mic, right? And I can remember like being in the back of an audience. There was probably about 300 people in the room, you know, thinking, and I knew they were going to call me up to go up there and talk, you know, and it was little things. It was like I'd be introducing people or talking about one of our marketing. It was little things. And as I was standing in the back of the room waiting for them to call me up, and this little voice in my head is like, oh, you're going to forget what you have to say, and they're going to laugh at you, and you're going to get up there and you're going to talk too long, or you're going to not talk enough, and you don't have the right clothes on. They're going to be looking at your shoes, you know, and all this stuff, like, because that's what happens when you're
the monkey chatter.
You get this voice going. All of a sudden, I just like took a deep breath, and I got this sense of peace, realizing that, you know, those people were here to hear what I had to say. Like, what an honor that they were there. And even if so what if I forgot something? You know, that's just a piece of, I forgot the word that my name is when we first started talking, you know. If you just can relax and lean into your fears, you never know that fear, that greatest fear that you have, really could be spirit saying, this is what I want you to do. This is where I want you to go. This is the next step. And that's one of the things I love about working with these light workers that, the million dollar light worker that I was telling you about, is that, they're at this threshold. Like, can I really make a living at this? Can I grow my business to the next level? Can I build a team? And also they're at this stage too, because a lot of them, as you know, Sally, the best way to grow your business is to get on stage. And you can have like maybe a 6-figure business and never get on stage. But if you want to get to the next level, you really got to get it out there and be an influencer. And it can scare a lot of people. And it's another thing that I just want to encourage your listeners. Like, if you have a fear like that, talk to it, because
Yes.
it really could be the direction you're being given to stop being small, get out there and step into who you truly are.
I discovered that when I lived in Hawaii, I was part of a group of women that we would try to help other women sort of like lift them up. And we would have a big summit. We didn't call it a summit then, but we'd have like 200 or 300 women that would show up and we'd have workshops to help them to learn how to do this or that or whatever. And we'd interview people. And for a while I was head of that particular conference, and I got to introduce a mayor and get to know the mayor, and she became the governor. And along the way, I realized that, wow, I just like really getting in front of people, and I love being in the spotlight. You put me in front of a spotlight, and people who know me normally think I'm an introvert, because I sit and listen to a lot of people and I don't say much, and I'm just listening. But you put me on a stage, that's fun. That is like super fun. And once you realize, like, who cares? And sometimes when I'm talking on stage, I don't even know what I've said. And it's only because I'm not letting myself speak. I'm letting whatever needs to be heard come out.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yes. And when you get aligned like that, it makes life and everything so much easier.
So what's your advice, Sally, for, those people sitting out there going, what do I need to do to get aligned?
Well, like you said, we need to start inside, inner reflecting what's in your heart, and be grateful for what you have, and ask for guidance. Whoever you think your higher power is, whoever is source for you, whoever is you believe is capable of moving things in a bigger way than you as a human, that's who you talk to. You have those conversations in the morning. I don't know if you know Deborah Poneman. She's been in the she was one of the first people to teach transcendental meditation. We're going way back in the Big Sur days. And she has a process where she gets up in the morning and she sits, not in meditation, but receptivity. She says, I'm going to sit. I'm just going to sit and just ask for whatever is going to come to me. And I will just write down a few little jots, not a big deal. And then the next day I'll ask for the same thing. And pretty soon I'm writing like a couple of pages of stuff that's coming to me. And if you do this consistently, you'll find that you start to find the rhythm and you start to find the theme, because there'll be a theme that comes up, and the theme is your season for this particular time.
I love that you said, like, I've never really thought, I'm a big meditator. I meditate every morning. And I love silent retreats. I'm also an introvert. I love to go within and be alone. But I love that you said to sit and receive, because really once you quiet your mind, Once you're aware of the fact that you're sitting in that space between everything, right? Between all the atoms and everything that's happening in the world. You do receive, and you don't always receive what you think you're going to get. It's like you can plan out, okay, this is what I want to know, go into the space. The subject doesn't even come up. It's amazing how that works.
Yes, and it's the right thing at the right time.
Absolutely.
And as soon as you accept that.
Absolutely.
My dear, this has been so much fun. I just love that you came on today. I love that we got to have this conversation. And I'm really hoping that the people who are listening to it will get some nuggets that make their life be better, richer, funner. Just play. And if you're not playing, then something's going awry. So just have a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So I'd like for you to just give us like one last sort of wind up of something you'd like to leave with our audience today.
Well, the biggest question I get from people is, Joy, what's my purpose? What's my mission in life? And my response is, your only mission in life is to live in joy. You're just here to live in joy. I think the question people are really asking is, how do I do that? And that's what this whole conversation has been, gratitude, ask other people about themselves, serve. And the next thing you know, you're just in that space of divine purpose, divine mission, and divine joy.
And yes, and you're there. And it's like when you realize that you're there, it's like, whoa, this really is a miracle.
Yeah. And for all of the women out there who are my age and single and think, it's not going to happen, I'm telling you, everything is possible.
Yes. And congratulations on your baby, your little grandbaby, your 4-month-old grandbaby. Life is so good.
It is. And
again,
thank you, Sally. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being here. And readers and also listeners, look at underneath where we have the notes for this particular podcast, and look at Joy and how you can contact her if you'd like to have further conversation. And also don't forget to follow and subscribe so we can put our mission out much bigger impacts. So thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next time.